Hello, my name is Kiwan from Raha International School. Before I present my presentation, I want to tell you that this project isn't created for any profitable purpose. The main purpose of this presentation/video is to provide the audiences further information about South North Korea and the defectors. As an extension reach, I want to directly help the defectors about ways to participate in donations. First of all, I'll introduce the contents. South North Korea. In this section, I'll slide the basic and brief information about both countries. I will also point out the biggest difference by comparing them. Deeper into North Korea. I will go through deeper into North Korea rather than going through South Korea, as my concentration is on North. I'll explain them economical, social perspectives before, during, after the escape. To group up some sections, I can group up these three. I will explain the adversities met in each part, documenting it with different sources. How can you help them? This content will be used to conclude my presentation and provoke the audience's support us further. So let's start. South North Korea. To understand the diversion of these two countries, we need to go into Korea's history in depth. Everyone knows that these countries were unified and remained as one, right? This was remain under Joseon Dynasty, 1392 to 1910, but the peace did not remain as long as everyone expected to be. Starting from 1910 to 1945, whole Korea was colonized by Japan and was set free after the US's bombing in Hiroshima. Unfortunately, Korea just wasn't a very high priority for the US. The Soviets, on the other hand, were more than willing to step in and take control of land that the Tsar's government had relinquished its claim to after the Russo-Japanese War. After 5 days of Japan's surrender, U.S. officials declared the delineation in New East Asia, meaning that Korea was given their own control of their country. The U.S. officials randomly drew a horizontal line in the center of Korea, named as the 38 parallel line. Briefly, the line in the center of Korea. Okay, never mind. The Northern Korea was supported by the Soviet Union, leading them to follow communism led by Kim Il-sung. On the other hand, the southern part was affected by the U.S., leading them to follow Democrat led by Lee Seung-man. And the picture on the right is Kim Il-sung, and the left one is Lee Seung-man. To summarize the changes of both countries until these days, many changes happened to both countries and affected their development. As for North Korea, they weren't able to develop as much compared to South Korea's rapid development. Experts say that this was due to the citizenship of two countries. Most North Korean citizens weren't able to afford enough food to sustain their life, creating concerns against their heads. As for South Korea, however, the citizens seem to be satisfied with their development and their heads. The result, the present day, shows that North Korea's economy and society is devastated. And that's what leads to this presentation's topic, defectors. The next content, deeper into North Korea. To examine the North Korea itself, let's start off with the economic system. First of all, it follows communism, and instead of having a president, there's something called the supreme leader. But the funny thing is that North Korea's full country name, which is DPRK, is an abbreviation of Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Like its name, the system is totally distorted. The position is sent hereditarily, starting from Kim Il-sung's tree, like on the picture. Due to this dictatorship, North Korea is isolated from the rest of the world. All the members of the society are coerced to fill the name of Kim's position. If they rebuke or stand against him, this is considered irreverence against Kim and leads to a heavy result, comprising execution. Additionally, the whole country suffers from dearth of living resources, especially for the citizens, as the government/the supreme leader spend most or closer to all the taxes on awakening his power The citizens are the victims. As this case increased as days went on, the concerns got bigger. For example, the hydrogen bomb, North Korea could be a good example of it. The bomb can be seen as significant result from Kim's view. However, behind the stage there are many flaws, and one of them is his suffering citizens. From a statistic in 2009, money spent on military was approximately $8.99 billion, whereas money spent on the basic resources is relatively low. To document this statistic, another report shows that in the 1990s, 3.7 million people died due to famine. And this is only in the 1990s. The case grew larger, and the dictatorship got even worse. So there are reasonable and justifiable reasons why some commit their lives for a new start. Before the journey. So, let's start off with a quick question. Why would they defect/escape their own country and find for a new start? If you've listened carefully before, the answer was there. You cannot answer this question exactly because I didn't stay in the same condition, and it is impossible to deduce others' feelings. One thing for sure, escaping North Korea requires a strong pledge and dedication, since it surely requires life as an insurance. Meaning that if they become unlucky and get caught by the police of any country, they are sent back to North Korea, and the result is obvious, like in the picture. So this shows how dreadful it is to stay as a North Korean citizen, risking their life to find a better future. All the defectors know how the journey is long and endless, but they keep their desires with them. Their determinations are that they will commit suicide when they're caught and will try their best to reach their destination. Before their journey begins, their escape is mostly take two mandatory equipment of an antithesis. One is rat poison and the other is sleeping pill. The role of these are totally different. The purpose of using a rat poison is to use them when confronting a situation where they get caught. Another option is a tiny knife, but usually it is considered too hard to commit suicide by stabbing oneself. The sleeping pill is used for immoral babies, mostly. Since they could be a distraction during the journey, their parents feed them pills to quiet them. In cases where the escapee forgets their equipment, the broker or the smuggler often affords them for the escapees. As you've heard, escaping North Korea requires a huge determination. Now, during the journey, where is their destination? The majority of the North Koreans' destination is South Korea. And so, what's the route to reach to South Korea? To begin the journey, the first phase is to cross over a river. Either the Aprok River or the Duman River. However, the majority chooses the Duman River as the tides are weaker and the width is shorter. Which might sound easy, but there are military camps around these rivers in 50-meter distance. Some of the escapees successfully bribe to their soldiers, but the soldiers are taught to be merciless and report them right away. If they successfully arrive in China, after crossing the river, China is where the escapees have selections of routes. Each route costs differently, and it requires a different level of risk. Number 1. There is a way of flying into South Korea right away from China. It is known as the most expensive and complicated way. They have to either create a fake passport and take a plane or a ship that designates to South Korea, or get a connection to an international organization. However, creating a fake passport costs about $10,000 per person, and it is close to being impossible for the escapees to have the money. Getting connection to an international organization takes a long time because it requires approbation from Chinese government. Averagely, it takes about years or so. The second route available is to go from China to Mongolia to South Korea. This route is mostly preferred because it is considered short comparatively. The first move into the Inner Mongolia from China, getting into Mongolia land, is to avoid the frontier guards and to cross over wire entanglements. In Mongolia, the escapees are disparaged. They are protected legally and moved into Korean organization. After they stay in their organization for a particular time, they are sent to South Korea officially. However, this process isn't too smooth. Between China and Mongolia, there is a deadly desert that the escapee has to cross over. Because it's a desert, the temperature is so mercurial for a person to adapt, and they lose their direction sense as they don't have any compass or anything else with them. Sometimes they get caught by the Chinese local police or the soldiers, and due to this kind of adversity, they meet their end, meaning they die. Third route is to go from China, Vietnam, Cambodia to Korea, or from China, Laos, Thailand to Korea. This route is used when they couldn't get into Mongolia or into the Chinese embassy because the escapees don't have any identity card or passport. They're denied to take any public transportation. They sometimes have to climb over mountains or even other landscapes. When entering into Vietnam and China, they have to risk their lives as they have to cross over the boundary. Then, from Vietnam to Thailand, they have to cross over a deadly river where lethal crocodiles are everywhere. In Cambodia, they are educated in a shelter the Korean embassy provides, and sent to South Korea in the best condition. In the route of crossing Laos to Thailand, they firstly smuggle into Laos and cross over the Mekong River to get into Thailand. This is a truly hard trip because they also have to be aware of the local polices simultaneously. In Thailand, they're educated, sheltered at the immigrant camp and slowly sent to South Korea. The last route, which is moving from China, Laos to Korea, was introduced in 2008. It uses a way of getting contact with the Korean embassy in Laos. This reduced the pressure the escapees had to overcome. However, the only problem is that they have to keep aware of Chinese police in Laos in special conditions. The similarities of these routes is that they all share some similar adversities and requires high risk. As I mentioned before, if they are caught by the police, they determine to take complete suicide. Not only this, but they also suffer from famine and disease exposure after the journey. After they successfully enter South Korea, the reality hits them unlike they have dreamed. This is really sad. The biggest problem they confront is the different culture. They mostly find themselves incapable of adapting to a new culture. Even worse, the citizens of South Korea aren't very open against the escapees. One of the shocks that came to the escapees about the culture is the freedom of speech given to citizens in South Korea. Since it is a huge violation to stand and speak against their government in NK, which is North Korea, this came to them as a surprise. One of the biggest problems that the escapees reported was discrimination. Some groups in South Korea treat escapees as different human beings, and this is held everywhere in the society, starting from school, companies. Due to these kind of problems, the number of escapees have declined abundantly, as you can see in the statistic. It showed that the number has decreased from 2012. Then in 2015, the number nearly reached until 500. The South Korean government noticed the problem and came up with a solution. The government supported that organization, Hanawan, more than they usually did. To explain about Hanawan, in this place they educated escapees about their new culture and help them adapt to the new place. Additionally, they provide the escapees basic livings, such as houses, money, and jobs. Hence, if the escapees have the desire to start again, Hanoi is the best place where they give the opportunities. How can you help them? There are two big ways that you can help. One of them isn't very hard and is performable easily. But it would require a lot of help around the world. If they just try to treat and see them as their friends, the escapists could shout their voice out to the world. Mostly after their long journey ends, they suffer mentally more than physically due to the harsh discrimination. Second is to participate in a charity. You can access to either help the people who suffer in North Korea or help the people who suffer during the journey. The first four links seen in the PowerPoint accesses to links where you can help the tortured North Korean defectors or the citizens in North Korea. These websites get connection with organizations in North Korea and provide them equipment. Specifically, their purposes are to provide secret foster homes in China for stateless children of North Korean refugee mothers who have been forcibly repatriated to North Korea or have fled abusive domestic situations for Chinese men who have purchased them for human trafficker in China. The other purpose is to assist North Korean refugees at extreme risk of detention, torture, or even summary execution if repatriated to North Korea to make their way to safety along the so-called Underground Railroad. The last purpose is to send already prepared food to hungry orphans and school children inside North Korea. And that's about the end of my presentation. I want my presentation to be a motivation for the audiences and move a small step against North Korea. As a South Korean citizen myself, I want my fellow friends in North Korea to rejoice in peace. And I'm asking help from you guys. I'm not forcing you, but just a small hand can be a big present for them. And these are the citations, the image sources I've used. As you can see, there are a lot. And thank you for listening to my presentation. Again, this is Q1 from our international school, and we should love North Koreans and treat them as real human beings.